location work, building out policies, the challenges of working with specific vendors. There's other points that they will feed into these three, but these are the top three we wanted to capture to be able to share back with you of what we heard and how we're going to structure some of the dialogues to come. They're sort of the big three umbrellas, and we had heard quite a bit of community consent that these were things that were happening across BC regardless of size of Seedy Saturdays and Sundays. The second sort of big point of information that I wanted to share back with the folks on the call today was around sort of the online tools that are currently being used or the willingness to engage with them. So one of the questions we had asked was around the likeliness to use Google Drive as a organizing tool across Seedy Saturdays and Sundays. So what we had heard back was a good strong 80% of people saying yes, they either use Google Drive already as an online shared tool for documents and sheets, and if anyone is not familiar with Google Drive, you can flag that in the comment box and I can follow up with you to share you more about how that platform works. There's 20% of folks who either were not using it, they do not like that as a platform, or they would not be willing to engage around it. Some of the folks that did fall in the yes camp maybe didn't use it, but said they'd be willing to see if it worked as a platform, particularly if it's a way to share documents that multiple collaborators are working on, which I think was a key point of what we were trying to get by hearing if people were actually using that as a tool or would. The sort of second point around the online tools that we wanted to discern was around the Facebook group. One of the activities that came out of the Seed Gathering last November was to have a closed Facebook group for Seedy Saturday and Seedy Sunday organizers to be able to have a space for sharing dates, sharing dialogue, common questions or concerns, and using that as a tool to do it. So we found that 50% of the 32 people were using it already and 50% weren't. We also wanted to determine why not. So that being drilled down there in the bottom right corner, 67% not knowing about it, 22% don't use Facebook at all, and 11%, which was other, which was, you know, haven't found it yet, I need to look into it more, etc. So it's been interesting because that was one of the first things we grabbed to track as well, was to see if we can make it grow. That's really, it's because it's been a closed group that was started. It's sort of been an invite and letting people know about it through our own network. So there's definitely space to make it grow. And I think we've grown like quite exponentially on it actually already since the survey went out. I'll put a link up for it at the end. If you aren't part of the group already, there's quite a bit of activity that's going on there. And I think that'll be a tool we end up talking about a little bit more at the end. So those are just our quick recaps of what we wanted to share back from the surveys. And yeah, the rest of it was really around if people were interested in coordinating, which is what we've got for our attendance today, and where we'll take this after. So now we get into the good stuff. I'm mindful it's 10:25, and we basically want to be able to bring sort of these two pieces forward for discussion over the next hour. What I'm interested in really doing for the group is there's sort of the two-pronged questions that I had put out through our event and through the group and email, Facebook group and email, was encouraging folks to come to this call today with two questions they have for other organizers or info requests, whether that's resources they need to know or pieces of information, or again, like, hey, is anybody using this and is it working? So I've got an overview slide here to sort of structure how we're going to go through this, and probably I'd like to sort of start to see where we can go in the next sort of 20 minutes. The idea that we'll do a round of people in speaking order, as that we did, and I'll put that over in the chat box if that's something we can keep moderating, Chris, now that we sort of have a round of people. And what we'll do is go around and share what the two sort of questions that you might have or info requests. We won't really dwell on drilling it down into granular detail or answering those right now, but what we're going to do is capture all those. If you had emailed me, and quite a few folks have been in dialogue with the last couple of days, which has been wonderful. If you've already shared yours, you can say pass, and I've already captured them in the slides that will come. So you're welcome to, or you're welcome to bring them up again as well. So hearing that, if folks are open for it, I think we'll go through the order again, starting with Anita from Souk, and we'll just unmute you. And if you want to capture the sort of share your two things or questions or info requests you'd like from the group, we'll go through in speaking order and capture those.
Thanks, Chris. regarding what we need, I'm always looking for ways to, we've got a good group of vendors coming in, but trying to get it easier for them to say yes and payment. We tried an online and it seems like they just didn't like that. And so they were much more comfortable with just sending checks in, and we're just trying to see if we can curtail that and have it a little bit more streamlined. So that's one of the major ones I think we can improve on. Others, I'm really interested in seeing what other Seedy Saturdays, Sundays do to entertain the children, because that's always a fun thing. And there's so many kids running around our wonderful old, it's probably about 100 years old community hall that we host our Seedy Saturday in. And last year we got over 1,000 people through in the 5 or 6 hours. So it's pretty popular. Thank you, Chris.
Laurel, did you want to add anything there? Next on the list there? Oh, sorry.
Hello, everybody. This is very exciting. It's so nice to work together, to actually collaborate, to conspire together. I think for me, what I'd like to see is a central Google Doc calendar that everybody can kind of start to upload their dates on it. And then there would have to be a way to get that out to the seedy vendors, all the vendors out there that are the big organic seed growers, and make sure that they kind of get that, because here in the Okanagan, we have to start planning kind of now so that we don't overlap, so that we don't have 2 seedy events in the Okanagan, in the Thompson Okanagan, from Kamloops to, Osoyoos, happening at the same time, because we draw on the same resource base of vendors. And yeah, I have lots of great ideas because I do a lot of community organizing. Done this for a long time. So I have lots of great ideas about kids, about payment, about vendors, all that I'm happy to share. So there you go. That's my big thing, is like some kind of central organizing process. And besides the diversity, even though I love those folks, how do we do that so that we help each other do this? There you go.
Awesome. Thanks, Laurel. That's great. Jen, do you want to go through? I will unmute you. Is there anything that you'd like to share with the group?
Yeah, I think I have similar concerns about payment. We did fairly well with e-transfers last year. It was surprising how many vendors were okay with that, and that helped a lot. But maybe some kind of database where it's all about managing the vendors. I found I spent a lot of time on getting back to them, and yes, we have space, and so I don't know if maybe farm folk, city folk could have some kind of organizing tool where the vendors would I don't know, check in there, and so we just go to that database and find out who the vendors are and when they're available, and then they can make the payment directly to us. So those are my issues.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. Let me get Michelina. That would be great if you would like to share.
Great. These are awesome ideas coming up so far. It's so cool. So my 2 questions are, the first one is, I'm wondering, for communities who also have seed libraries, how do you integrate the 2 initiatives, the Seedy Saturdays and the seed libraries, if you do it all? I'm wondering, like, when do I encourage people to donate their seeds to the seed library, and when to the seed swap at a Seedy Saturday? And my second question is about how people empower the folks in their organizing group to take more of a leadership role. In Squamish, some people feel that they don't want to, I guess, because they don't have as much seed saving experience. But it's not really about that. It's like whether you can organize things or not. So just looking for input on that as well.
Great. Those are great points. Thanks so much for sharing. Patrick, I'm opening up your line if you are able to share back, or if you want to add anything else. Let's see if we can get you unmuted from your phone. All right.
Okay. The main two questions I have are around, like, we're a very small community and therefore a small Seedy Saturday, and a limited amount of seed vendors who actually are able to make it out. And so it's generally a pretty small event where we have about 12, 13 tables, and they're not even all seed vendors necessarily. We have a few other types of vendors. And because of that, we also struggle to get enough public turnout because, just we do. And so we're trying to figure out how to make a bigger event that appeals to a broader section of the general public. So we're considering inviting, different kinds of food producers, crafters, etc. We're concerned, though, of course, about the risk of losing our seed focus. So just wondering if other people have done this and how they maintain that, or what their experience is. And the other one is similar to what's already been said. What kind of online communication platform could we be using? I was thinking more regionally in our area between Seedy Saturday organizers. Yeah, those are my two big info requests.
Thank you, Patrick. So I'm going to open it for both Diana, for yourself, and for Sylvain. I know you guys are both from Comox, so if you would like to jump around, you are welcome to. See if we can get you both there.
From my standpoint, I do the organizing of the vendors as part of our Seedy Saturday, and the challenge is always to try to find new vendors. To come back to somebody's point, we run at about, we have a fairly big Seedy Saturday, and it's been going on for a long time, and we run around 30% of our vendors, or somewhere around there, are seed vendors, and everybody else is sort of garden or plant-related type of vendors. And that's a good mix because it attracts people that are looking for tools, knickknacks, as well as seeds, of course. But I find that because we've been doing it for a long time, there's a little bit of tiredness with seeing the same people all the time. So it's nice when you can bring new vendors in. So a sort of a comprehensive database of all the vendors that are available or participating in other venues, that we can just send an invitation to everybody. And then, granted, a lot of people won't come out to the Comox Valley because it's a long ways, but nevertheless, at least they have the opportunity to say, yes, we'd like to go, or whatever. And then we get the choice of picking who we want to have come over. That's my 2 bits.
Yeah, hi, it's Diana here. So one person brought up payment. We haven't had any trouble. We have quite a few vendors, and PayPal has been very successful. In fact, that's the majority of our vendors pay through PayPal.
Great, thanks for sharing that, Diana. That's good to know. Well, let me see, we'll get Tiffany. I will find you and unmute you. You can unmute yourself as well.
Hi there. You guys can hear me?
Sounds great.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'm just kind of echoing what everyone else has brought up. We haven't had many Seedy Saturday events up north, and I think our area, probably the same roadblocks that Patrick might be having as well, being in a smaller area, is being able to encourage people to come, encourage the different types of vendors. Like, I think with us, we would have to be diversifying as well. I know that they've sort of collaborated and done Seedy Saturdays as well as plant swaps up here, so maybe people could come and sell their starts as well. So yeah, those would be my main ones. Would be the being able to have a central location for all the documents, like you'd already been talking about with Google Drive, but then also ideas on different events that could attract a bigger audience, as well as collaborating with areas that are so far apart. Like, we're quite spaced out, we're about an hour away from the next town over, sort of thing. So those are my concerns being up here in the north.
Great, thank you. Those are good ones to share as well. So I'm going to just speak for Natalie. Natalie, thanks for typing in the box. She's putting it over to everyone so they can read. But Natalie's 2 questions that she's sharing here with the group is, 1, is there a standard for vendor contracts and the table rentals for events? A great one, and I'm sure there'll be lots of feedback on those points. And second is around questions or inquiry and tools for advertising on a limited budget. That's also a great one. So we'll document those. Thanks, Natalie. I also just want to jump that I had seen Daniela has joined us. Danielle, let's see, I think thanks for coming in. You can control your muting yourself, or we can as well. If you want to just say who you are, where you're calling in from, and the Seedy Saturday, Sunday that you're involved with, as well as if you have 2 questions that you're interested to share with other organizers, that'd be great.
Hi there. Sorry to be late, but we've got our indoor market started this morning and it took a little while to get organized. I am from Kamloops, and I've kind of taken over the Seedy Saturday from the or gardening group locally, because they found that they couldn't get enough people organized to volunteer for it. And because I'm growing seeds and I've been to a few of the events, I really enjoyed them and I wanted to keep it going, and it's worked out fairly well. What Laurel said, running into different dates with some of because I'm in Kamloops, then the Okanagan has so many Seedy Saturdays, we don't want them on the same weekend, and we've run into that where we have to move them around. And to get a hall that's big enough, I have to book almost a year in advance. So if we could have it so that it's a specific date, and then that way we get our Seedy vendors that can attend, would be really fabulous, because we've run into that where it's on duplicate dates, and if they don't have staff, then they can't attend. And most of the seed vendors are small, operating it themselves, and they don't have staff to do it. And the others, it seems to be working well. Our attendance is kind of at a certain level. We've got about 250 people, and I'd like to try to expand it. So that's something, we do have more than just Seedy vendors. We've got gardening vendors and produce vendors, and but some way that we could kind of hit the 400 and 500 attendance mark would be great.
Great, thank you for sharing. Those are great points as well. I just want to turn it back over before we sort of take this to the next level. Is if anybody else has something that has came up through folks sharing those ideas, or if something else has resonated, I would encourage you to unmute yourself and share it, and we'll capture that right now before we move on. We'll just give everyone a minute or 2 to think about it, and feel free to popcorn up and share if there's another question or info request you'd like to put to the group.
This is Patrick here. I could add one thing that we do, mostly around the promotion and doing it inexpensively. So we have a number of ways that we do that, and none of them cost us too much. Our organization puts out a monthly e-newsletter, so we always advertise it well in that. You know, that's through a MailChimp type newsletter. We also do posters around our town and in the general area. We ask vendors, of course, we give them the poster and ask them to share it with their networks. We do classified ads in our local kind of classified advertising newspaper here. That's kind of the most expensive thing we do, and it's not too expensive. We, of course, do a Facebook group and Facebook promotion, and we also put it out to our local community radio station. And we find that we get the word spread pretty well that way, and it doesn't cost us much.
Okay, great. Thanks, Patrick. Thanks for adding that one in. And we'll talk a bit more in the next sort of section in about 5-10 minutes around more of the tools that we want to share what is working. So that's great. Those are really good tools that I think we can definitely capture. Does anyone else have any other questions or things that they want more info on, or issues they're having to catalog now before we move forward?
I just wanted to add a little bit about what I do in Penticton and other places. Community partnerships are really important. One of the people that organize the Seedy Saturday in Kelowna are the master gardeners. So if you have a master gardener group in your area, I would by all means involve them as much as possible. Your garden clubs are very important. I don't know if up north, if there's farm organizations, that would be a really good thing to do. Also, we do so I really encourage all of that community partnership so that we get as much, the community garden is involved. So I get as many partner groups as possible that have a focus on agriculture and food security involved. And to get everybody promoting that event is really a good idea and it really helps.
Thanks. Anyone else questions to put out for other info that you want to do? Otherwise, we're going to just, we're going to make sure we have sort of have these captured in the way to work through them.
Sylvain here. We've had reasonably good success using all the tools that have been discussed. And the other one that we probably get the best success with is just a press release to the local newspaper. But we found that the newspapers, certainly in the Comox Valley, have been not as helpful in putting press releases out. So it's always a little bit of a touch and go. So really advertising sorry, I'll back up a bit. Reaching people that are into gardening already is easy because they're connected to all the media and electronic media that we currently use. But it's actually reaching people that don't know about Seedy Saturday, or they're, that we're trying to attract new people, and we're having real problems doing that because standard media or advertising just doesn't work anymore. And Facebook and websites are very targeted, and how do you reach the people that are not already looking? So that'd be my question.
Point. Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to do, hearing that there's a lot of keenness right now to talk about solutions, I feel like this is a really quick way to sort of pivot that around. I'm just going to stop sharing for a second, revamp up this little slide deck so we can try and capture some more of these pieces. If you want to think right now, what we're going to do is we'll go back around then and do the sharing the two tools or things that are working really well for you. So I'm just going to ask everyone to sit tight for a minute and think about your two things, and then we'll moderate to go around and do that sort of second round of the key things that are working again for us.
And I'll maybe just use, it's Chris here from Farm Folk, City Folk. I maybe just use this little interlude. One thing I think we're looking at organizationally is we're really curious about what kind of information each of you is collecting from your Seedy Saturday. We're curious to know how many people are coming to your event, how many seed vendors you have coming, what kind of fees you're charging. And from a larger perspective, it really helps us promote Seedy Saturdays and look at ways to continue doing things like this when we can produce metrics that show the impact that Seedy Saturdays are having on communities. And from our experience, we have a sense that the community and economic impact that Seedy Saturdays have across the province, is quite significant. So over time, gathering some data about attendance and economic generation will be a really valuable tool in future projects to demonstrate the contribution that Seedy Saturdays have to the province overall, not just economically, but also community-wise, and then of course in maintaining some of that seed diversity that we're always talking about.
Great, thanks, Chris. Just getting ready to roll it again. Thank you so much. That's great. Right, so having heard that, I'd love to open back up and share around again to hear in the same order the two tools that are working well for everybody else. And we'll get the screen share going in again. Anita, if you want to go forward and share two things that are working well for soup, that'd be great. I heard you just put up the PR piece around having the road signs. That's a great one. Is there anything else you'd want to add there?
Using them probably for 6 years straight, and that is actually generating a lot of people that see the signs and kind of wonder what Seedy Saturday is, and they'll come in. So we get some just people driving by of the day of, so that's been really useful. We also do some of the other, the news releases and everything else, but the signage is really impactful. The other one is how we set up the Seedy Saturday, well, I kind of chair it. What we do is we've identified the different slots, and we get volunteers to do be a champion for that slot, such as recruitment of volunteers, recruitment of basically everything, like, okay, who's going to deal with the kids program, etc. And so what I find is that they're not it's doable for them, and so they're really keen on coming up and doing their piece and getting the volunteers for that piece. So I'm finding that the securing of volunteering is a lot easier than when we tried to have it all everybody doing everything. So those are my two pieces that are really working out well for the Seedy Saturday.
Awesome. Thanks, Anita. Laurel, would you like to go ahead and share two things? I think you said already had identified that some resources you can share around some of the vendor, the payment pieces, and the kids' activities, but are there other tools or activities you wanted to share with the group right now?
The biggest thing of all, well, one of the big things is being consistent with your dates. Got to try and do it on the same Saturday, same Sunday every year, so that it becomes part of the community calendar. That's a really good thing to do. As many free places that you can list what you're doing, the better it is. Also, visual images are really important. If you have great photographs that you've taken of your Seedy Saturdays, the press really likes visuals. That's really important. What else can I say? I put a pretty broad net out in terms of my vendors. I usually have lots, and they help pay for the event. I know it's you have to kind of walk that fine line between Seedy vendors that you have and actual vendors that are selling other things, but I really try and stick to food. People love the food, and to promote it as a market as well is a really good thing, because by that time of year, by February, there hasn't been any markets. There hasn't even in our region any indoor markets. So it's really good to sort of, because people are hungry for it and they're really interested in it, and they want their good bread and their, nice jams and all that kind of stuff. So I do a lot of that. And yeah, so it's being consistent, is getting your dates up, getting them out early enough. Visual images is really important, and I think that's about it from me. And I can talk about, when we want to talk about kids more, I can do a little bit of that too.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. There's so much. You have such a wealth of knowledge. It's great to hear. Everybody in this room, I just want to have a second of like, wow, this is great, and I'm very excited. If you can't hear it in my voice already, or you don't know me personally to know how keen I am about bringing good dialogue together, I think this is really exciting to have this space to share, and I'm really grateful for it. I'd like to move it over to Jen. Jen, if you want to share about 2 tools or resources that are working really well for you, that would be great. That would be great to hear from your perspective.
Hi. Yeah, well, one of the resources that we found was pretty good was the banners. Last year we weren't able to do one because we couldn't afford it, but whenever I've organized other events, a banner is really effective. And I guess it's just definitely the broad reach to the vendors is really important. Reaching out to all of the vendors at the other Seedy Saturdays. Women's Food and Water Initiative, we save seeds ourselves through our urban farm. So we're there as a vendor and as an organizer. And so in our travels of vending our seeds, our acclimatized seed, we have been able to invite other vendors. So that's what's been effective for us.
That's great. I just see, I think there's a question over in the chat box of where do you display the banners? Where in particular are you talking about having your banner?
Well, here in Port Alberni, we have a corner where all of the different banners go up for the theater, for sports events, everything. So we would display one there, and then we would display one at the venue itself, which is an old church that's being turned into a venue for different public events.
Okay, great. Thanks for adding to that. Let's move it over. Michelina, would you like to jump in and add anything there?
Mm-hmm. Just a couple things. So our little organizing committee uses Google Drive for keeping all our info in there. And it's really easy just to see, for everyone to see what happened last year, what vendors we had, what workshops we had. That's been working super well. So I love that. We've been using Facebook ads, and I know not everybody is on Facebook, but for some towns, it seems to be like a very good growing way to advertise your events. They're pretty cheap, and we found that they've been super effective. So that's one advertising venue we use. And we also have, we set up a mini subset of our seed library at the front door to the Seedy Sunday event. And we get people to become members right on the spot there if they're interested. And we found that's been an amazing way to increase our seed library membership. And also we collect their emails. So we have that pool of people interested in seeds that we can email about upcoming Seedy Saturdays and events. So that's been, when you can deliver something right to somebody's inbox, it makes a huge difference. So yeah, that's been great too.
Awesome. Those are great ones. Thanks so much. Patrick, do you want to jump in? Is there other things that you wanted to share that are working well? I know you mentioned all those advertising venues that sounded really great.
Yeah, just to add a couple other things. I think one of them, a few of them have already been mentioned from others, so I won't say that. But one thing I'll mention is, and this is maybe more for Seedy Saturdays that are struggling to get enough seed vendors out to them, and that's one issue for us. And of course, the buying public wants to have as much choice as possible. So we really feel we need to get a few more seed vendors here. We're just in an area where there's not too many. So we've reached out to a couple of seed companies that actually, they're not from our region at all. They wouldn't physically be able to come. And we've asked them to mail us a box of seeds, and we get a volunteer to stand behind a table and sell those seeds for them. It's good for the seed company. They make money with very little cost to them other than the shipping costs. And we do a 10% off the top fee to handle kind of things for us. But they're happy to do that. And that's worked really well because the buying public enjoys having that many more options of seed to buy. It's a tricky balance. You just got to make sure that you're not cutting into or taking away from sales of your local seed companies too, of course. So it's a bit of a balance to do there. And some of the seed companies that we found have been willing to send us seeds for us to sell to them for them over the last couple of years are Sunshine Farm Seeds from Kelowna, Salt Spring Seeds from Salt Spring, and the BC Eco Seed Co-op. So that's worked well for us, and that's something that could be considered for other places that need more seed vendors.
Great, that's a great one. I think that's would be really of interest to a lot of people, for sure. Thank you. Sylvain and Diana, I open it up to you folks from Comox. Not sure who wants to go, or if you both have ideas that you want to share right away.
I feel like it's been well covered by other people. Sylvain, what have you got to add?
The road signs have been very effective, and in terms of measuring attendance, we charge a small entry fee to get into our Seedy Saturday, and we have speakers. So basically, you know, because people pay at the door, we have an excellent record of attendance. So that helps that way. A little bit of a detriment because not everybody wants to spend money, but on all the advertising that's been discussed, the challenge is really how do you get the message out to people that are not involved in gardening or don't know that Seedy Saturday exists, or they're just not connected. And we found over the years that that's been the single biggest challenge. And the road signs are helpful because, you know, people see them, but the newspaper is getting a bit selective, and electronic media, it only reaches people that reach out to connect to that. So that's been really challenging. How do we broaden the spectrum of attendance? We've had reasonable seed vendors attending because most of the guys on the island do the circuit, and they come year to year. But it's really, I find it's nice to have a good mix of other types of vendors in gardening tools, paraphernalia, a lot of guys doing bees. There's not a lot for vegetables, but I agree if somebody was selling food there, they'd probably have not food so much as in food to eat, but vegetables or whatever, that'd be a good opportunity. We have nurseries come out. So we have some of our vendors are inside, some are outside. The nurseries usually work outside. So because you have a good mix of all kinds of different vendors, it seems to meet the needs of the population more, because we found a lot of people come to Seedy Saturday to shop, not so much for the speakers or for seeds specifically. They come to get other things. And we also offer tables to nonprofit organizations that are advertising sort of like-minded subjects, GE free and the seed bank. So because you have all of that there, it brings people in, and they also get informed, and they can, people are looking for volunteers and everything else. So that's really, really, I think, helpful to fill a room, and also it puts, there's not just seeds for sale, and so that meets more of people's general needs. So that's a little bit of what we do. But again, we do advertising, the posters, we do media in terms of newspapers, road signs, Facebook, our webpage, of course, and the radio. There's always a few free plugs you can get here and there. It's always the question, but we found that attendance varies tremendously. Some years it's up, some years it's down, and it's trying to understand why it's not really consistent. But also having speakers is good. If you can have speakers that are a little bit known into your community on subjects that are close to people's heart, that usually brings people in, because a lot of people want information, especially beginning gardeners. They really want more information on how to do it and how to start, and a good speaker goes a long ways to doing that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Those are great points as well. I know, Tiffany, I know you're new and you haven't been doing something, and so I don't want to assume that you've got two amazing tools that are working, but I do want to make space if you wanted to jump in. So please feel free if there's something you want to have here, as you have the mic for a sec.
Hi, yeah, I haven't actually hosted one before. I've just done kind of basic seed saving workshops to introduce our seed library at the public library here. I have heard that Chet, when they offered theirs, they did the Seedy Saturday combined with the plant swap, and I think that worked out really well just as far as timing, because I know that a lot of people up here with our really short season, we're starting our plants quite early. So that would be something I think that I would be looking at as far as diversifying to reach a broader spectrum of people up here.
Great, awesome, thank you. And I had just put it over to Natalie as well, so I just wanted to check in with that from the chat box. And one moment while I go back. There's lots of great action happening in the chat box. If folks, while they're listening to, want to look or read in on that, it's a great tool for dialogue right now. Natalie, thanks for sharing. You just said you're learning on this one, which I can understand. I'm also seeing some comments in the box too. I'll just throw them out to the group around having a host at the door. So there's two things that are happening in dialogue here in the chat box about having some of the information like in a sheet or organized together to be able to have the stats sort of collected of what we're sort of looking for in a way that we can template that out and share. There's also been the comment around having a door host is really effective for counting people as well as drawing people to the tables in a certain of who's there or where the information might be. There's other things too for charging at the door, offering a door prize of goodies. Anything else we want to jump in on? Some great things. Awesome. Okay, great. I'll just put it out then to anyone else. Is there anything else we haven't got through? Daniela, apologies. Did you want to add anything that's working really well for you?
Sure. What we do is we charge at the door, but seniors, students, and children get in free. And what we do is we do different colored tickets so we can track attendance, and then we do our door prizes. But one thing, because it's so loud in the hall, we found that we'd be announcing and nobody would ever collect their door prizes. So what we do is pre-mark the roll of tickets and then give the door prize when they come in, and people get very excited. And we're taking a page from Laurel and from the Enderby Seedy Saturday, where I used to go around and collect door prizes from the city and different people. And now what we're going to do is ask the vendors to pool door prizes together for us. So that's worked really well. And a lot of the comments that everybody's made have been great to for the pictures and get in the community calendar. If we can get the dates written in stone, that would be nice.
Mm-hmm. Good point. I'm just going to open it up to anyone else. Is there any other tools or things that are working really well right now that you want to make sure that you feel like hasn't been brought up in some way, or that you want to share with the group? We can just open it for a little bit of discussion right now while we pull these pieces together.
Hello there. Laurel here. In the past, I had an upcycling center make me a cold frame for a donation for a door prize. I've had a chicken tractor, which is a very cool thing. We do try and do workshops every year as well. And I often offer, if there's a really good vendor coming that has information, because a lot of people really want to learn how, is really do a booth table space in exchange for a workshop. So that's another thing to do. Yes, you got to keep it so that people, understanding that most people don't know. And so you've got to start with really simple workshops like seed starting and, you know, this is how you grow veggies and things that we wouldn't necessarily think are important, because I've gardened for years, but for somebody really, there's a real interest in this and a real upsurge in the public energy around seeds, around veggie growing, all of that kind of stuff. So it's really important to realize that what we're doing is really significant, really significant. So really honor that in yourselves and in each other. It's really, really, really important, because we're all about to get a lot more green and close to home.
That's great. Thank you, Laurel. Anyone else want to jump in and share anything else that they've either, if they said it in the seed box and in the chat box and they want to share it, or if they haven't heard anything they'd like to share? This is a good moment to put out things that are working well or that we want to see amplified, so we can capture all this in a great brain dump that Chris is madly typing up.
Sylvain here at Comox. No. The other thing we do with, we have a little bit of a kids zone. So we pay a couple of volunteers or people that know how to deal with children, and they bring supplies, and then they have arts and crafts for children. So the parents need to be in attendance, but it looks like it's a huge hit with young parents that come there. It's kind of okay, you can do an hour of boring stuff, and then we could do an hour in the kids zone. And then they can actually spend more time in the venue because the kids don't get so cranky. And it's also a good venue for the parents to meet other parents that are like-minded. So that's worked quite well. And we get good attendance there as well.
Great, that's a great one. Anyone else?
Yeah, this is Patrick here. The hall that we rent has a kitchen attached to it, and we used to always invite somebody to come and be a cook and provide some kind of hot food that people could purchase. And that person stopped wanting to do it. And so we actually took it on ourselves, and it's ended up being really positive. So we always put out a number of tables and chairs close to that kitchen space, and we have what we call the Seedy Cafe. And we get a local caterer to prepare some food for us, pretty basic stuff, some soup, some wraps and spanakopita, some cookies. And they sell it to us at the wholesale price that they would sell it to a store that resells those items. And so then we're able to mark up the price a little bit, get a volunteer to help with, reheating the things, having them for sale, taking the cash and so forth. And it's been really great. It creates a space for people to sit, to spend more time. They end up hanging around the Seedy Saturday for longer, having great community conversations. And we also pull in some money that way. So it helps us with hall rental and covering fees. So having a small cafe area where people can have a light lunch has been really helpful for us.
Awesome. That's a great one. I imagine there's a few other folks here who maybe do something similar as well. I know, and maybe Anita, I can just say from when I was working with you and Food Chief for the Souk Seedy Saturdays, I know we had done that partnership with the Souk Fall Fair Society, and that was a cross-promotional piece where they were sort of running the food and drawing it and doing the cross-promotion, which I think also having the food can be a really big draw. Anything else anyone wants to add, whether it's on the topic of having a Seedy Cafe or other things that are working that you think others want to know about? We'll sort of close this in the next couple of minutes for discussion and talk about some next sections.
Sylvain here again from Comox. Yeah, we do a Seedy Cafe, and that works quite well. We do it 100% manned by volunteers, so it works out to be a reasonably good. We get food donations from the local health food stores and whatever. And anyways, we found that it helps because we give a free meal to all our volunteers. So it's a good way of helping the volunteers out, and we allow, and it's fairly discounted food. The vendors can get first pick at it kind of thing, and our volunteers make sure that collect the order menus from the vendors as well. So a lot of vendors are by themselves, so it's hard for them to leave and get a meal. So we either cover their table for them, or we bring a meal to them, and then that way they can get lunch and keep selling. The other thing that we've done, we're a nonprofit society, and our biggest area of support is with school gardens in the Comox Valley. And in order to have the schools participate a bit, we have the school art program. So basically, before Seedy Saturday, we give our themes to schools, and they will provide some art on that theme. And then we post the art everywhere inside the venue for Seedy Saturday. So it involves the schools. It puts a lot of color in the venue, and it sort of and hopefully it draws some of the parents and people associated with those children to come and have a look at this stuff as well. So nevertheless, not sure how many people actually spend time looking at the art, because it's kind of always a mad rush on Seedy Saturday itself, but it certainly makes the venue a lot more interesting. So anyways, that's another thing we've done for the last 3 years, and it's certainly very nice.
That's great. And maybe I'll add a point in too. I don't think Ava's joined us from Langley, but she had sent me some information before as well too. And she was talking about, for them, they're a local nonprofit society, but they work with the Kwantlen, the local university. So that's other partly done, whether it's a cross-promotional piece through them or overlapping. They align with the local winter farmers market. So they really get a tie-in of the audience for the certain date as well. And by doing partnerships, which is different than the sort of school partnership you're just talking about, Sylvain, which I think is really cool. Having the partnership with the local university has also made space available, or having access to other folks to run workshops too that wouldn't be made available. So I want to put that out to the group too, as that's something that I came across my desk that I know Ava didn't make it today to share. Is there anything else? We're at 11:10. I'll sort of do one last round if anyone has anything else to add for tools, and then we're going to talk about next steps. Or is I guess I also inquiry question out, if anything else has came up with more questions or things you want to know more about or info, we can also sort of go back to that first, the first section we started about of info to know as well. Okay, hearing none at this time. So as everyone's been talking and sharing, which has been amazing, Chris has been capturing notes, so everything's being captured in a brain dump. And I've also been trying to pull those together into identifying where sort of things are falling for us. So I'm hoping my screen share went back out. If no one can see it, please let me know. And what I'm hoping what we can do is we're looking to have a second call in the coming weeks, and I'll actually have a link at the end that I will send out for a save the date. But what I would see as potentially options here is, here's a rough rough all some of the ideas that have came up. It seems like things are falling in terms of our questions and info requests into the categories around, there's some vendor pieces there, there's some organizing and structure team pieces, and there's some PR and communication, which is definitely the column I have not been able to pull in while we've been talking. So what I would see being able to move for next actions is being able to look at Chris and I to take all the notes that we've shared today and sort of better categorize of how things are fitting and what folks are seeing they need. On the flip side, these are some of the points we were just able to capture around things that are working well and things that we might be able to amplify. So that, again, it's everything from the vendors to the organizational structure and team, some of those PR and communication pieces, the workshops, the kids zones, the Seedy Cafe, etc. So what I would like to suggest is we can follow up with sort of the notes of these and bring it back out to the group if the group is interested in doing it. What I would like to put out then in doing those sort of summary pieces is that we can do maybe around a consent around some of the pieces of that we think are most pressing, or that we can share some information about. So I don't think we're going to be able to do it right now with knowing there's 13 people on the call, but questions I would love to hear people to take away from with something you either learned today or that you shared today. Is there something that an action that you have personally been inspired by that you would like to see answered in any way? And if so, what are all the ways we can either address it, or what are some more info we need to make it actionable? So I'm just going to give everyone a moment to sort of reflect on what you've heard or what you've taken from it in terms of where we could see some needs being identified. And maybe I'll put it back to the list too. I think it might be helpful. I think we know what we're doing great. I think some of these pieces might be good ones to identify. And unfortunately, we can't be in sort of presenting mode and updating these lists exactly live on the button. But if anyone has anything they want to jump in on to make sure is captured here as well, or that you think is a really key priority, we can just open for discussion for the next 5 minutes before we wrap.
Diana here, quick question.
Yeah.
Do we have someplace we can go now and look at what dates other people have scheduled their 2019 Seedy Saturday?
That's a great question, and we can hop on. Chris, you might want to also hop on too. I know there was a front end page that Farm Folk City Folk we had up on the BCC. Sort of some people were doing some cards there in terms of the list. I also know the Seeds of Diversity list has started to be updated. We as the sort of Farm Folk Bauta BC Seeds hat here do not have a list going that we've started to share. I know there's been some activity on the Facebook group, but from what I sort of heard resonating is that's maybe a need for that internal kind of calendar piece, Laurel, that you brought up, is like, so we all know and see it in one easy place too, that's maybe not necessarily that public interfacing where Seeds of Diversity has like all the contact info and the website addresses, but to have that calendar. I think there's been quite a few comments throughout. Yeah, the seeds.ca, Natalie saying, yeah, the Seeds of Diversity listing too, to have it. But yeah, I think that's a really actionable piece, is just have a little internal document here to be able to make sure as organizers we can clearly see it. Anything else to jump into there? I've been really feeling like if I'm reading sort of through a lot of the comments today and the conversation is having like lots of organizations are doing it internally, but there might be sort of this structure here we can bring together as sort of an overview or like some how-to templated documents, the calendar pieces. That seems like there's some really some big pieces there that we could be cross-promoting and amplifying.
Yeah, I'll add a few quick comments here. So the Seeds of Diversity website really now is the central location that tends to be the most updated. But of course, those dates only get updated when local events actually schedule that. So we have started a database on the Seeds, bcseeds.org website that's just focused on BC growers. So there's a bit of duplication there, but I think when people are looking for dates, I think having them in multiple locations is good. So we'll look at continuing to update our dates on our website. Seeds of Diversity, I know, is going to continue doing their work. And I think the idea of a shared calendar between all coordinators will be a valuable tool as well. And then I think as people are talking about, the quicker you know your date, the better. some events are actually advertising their date for the next year at the current event. So if you can book stuff a year in advance, like some people have said they need to, that really helps everybody do a lot of cross promotion as well.
Agreed. Anyone else want to jump in for sort of some last thoughts around those key pieces, whether that's the calendar piece, seems like that's a really strong piece, some of the internal documents, sharing.
I saw somebody put up the question regarding insurance. At Comox Valley Growers and Seed Savers, we are insured through the BC Council of Garden Clubs. It's very inexpensive and it covers meetings and the actual Seedy Saturday. And it's a great way to go. You have to become a member, but it's very affordable.
Great question. Anyone else want to jump in on insurance? Well, that's a hot topic there. Well, we have a moment. Okay, no. That's great. Just reading the comment box too for anything else, or Chris, feel free to ping pong off me if there's other things that you've seen that you want to bring, or if someone's put something there that they want to make sure gets said while this last few minutes. Yeah, I think that's resonating through and through around the helping get everything clarified for the organizing docs and what's working well, because also being able to build in the sort of succession plans for people. And I think it's a common theme as well. I got from some comments that came in before we started today around often having one or two people really hold the main pieces, and what do we do when those people need a break, and how do we build organizing teams around that. So I think there's a piece there for capturing that. The volunteer leads, I think, Anita, I'd seen you put in earlier that you have the honorarium for the vendor coordinator, which is a really nice acknowledgement piece to hold. There's a large range, it seems, of folks who are working primarily only volunteers. So again, where is their honorariums or things that can get paid out, or where are the pieces that are all volunteer? Seeing the comment from Jen around needing a list of BCC vendors and their contacts. That's absolutely a great piece, and that's definitely a coordinating piece that we can do some sharing with. Anything else? Yeah, we have a list, as Chris is saying, that we've been able to try and do that, especially since I started emailing folks out to sort of see who's there. So there's a great list that we'll be able to share. It's got sort of the website and some of those dates as well. So I just put open for any last comments and questions. I'm going to move us, just sort of have us here sitting here for the last sort of slide. We given people's feedback from the survey, which is sort of what we're best going to. Most folks could do this sort of Wednesday morning or weekday morning. So we've chosen December 5th. We put up a new link for the next sort of call to try and do a save the date to follow up on this. The link there is also for the Facebook group. I think if folks haven't found it, that's one way to do it. You need to log into Facebook, and then you should be able to find it, but we can do some inviting out too. This will have yes, we'll definitely have a list of people who are at this webinar. I think what I would like to do particularly is the folks who are on this call, I will follow up with you as a group, and then make sure you have this information as well. And there'll be some of the notes. I know there's a lot of people who couldn't make it today who wanted to know what do we talk about. So that'll be my next big piece, is Keeley-izing all of these notes and thoughts and putting them together to be able to sort of do some sharing back. And I think this has been really fruitful. Again, I just wanted to remind everyone the point sort of today was being able to, I should also be a better. You have to bear with me, I'm not a webcam fan, is to be able to just have this process and make a space for these dialogues that I think the appetite is right for them right now. So thank you everyone for making the time to join and be able to sort of flow with where we went today. I really wanted to have enough flexibility and structure to see where discussion went and not have it predetermined of what we were trying to hammer out. I do just want to put it out that we have 10 more minutes left of time. So if folks want to just continue to put out ideas, bounce them, we'll keep capturing them, or use the chat box and be able to do it, and then we'll do some good follow-up. But thanks again so much for all the good dialogue today.
I'd love to hear more ideas for kids. One of the things that was a big hit this year was Timmy Skrupachenko from Naramata Seeds. I got off him a huge box of little tiny spinner gourds. They're a little tiny gourd, and they make great tops. And that was a huge hit with the kids. They spun them, they colored them, they did all kinds of cool stuff. It was very fun. And another little craft we did was We saved eggshells and painted little faces on the eggshells and then put seeds in the eggshells, grass seed or whatever we had extra, and sent them home in egg cartons or partial egg cartons. That was super fun. That was a great thing. And then some other class at Naramata Elementary School actually had blank seed packages that the kids colored and drew on, and it was really fun because then we brought those back and they were filled with sunflower seeds or something really simple, and that was a really super great activity and got kids involved. And then I've had some live demos of different things, seed sorting, wool carding, whatever I could think of, because people really like to be engaged. They really like to see people doing and making with their hands. So that's a big draw. And had a brilliant woman come and paint gourds one year, and the stuff she does is phenomenal, but it was really exciting to see that. So live interactive things as well, really a good idea.
Awesome, great, Laurel. Does anyone else want to jump in on kids activities while we're sort of wrapping on that point? I think that's a really good one.
I have a couple, Michelina from Squamish here. One of my favorite activities from when I was a kid at the Sunshine Coast Seedy Saturday is someone had, I think it was West Coast Seeds, donated a ton of expired seeds, and there was just glue and paper, and we could make like seed collages and mandalas. So I've done that at the Squamish one, and it's a huge hit with the kids. We also made wildflower seed bombs last year, just with clay and a bit of potting soil, and then sprinkle the seeds on top and roll it up. Then the kids can bring them home and dry them and then throw them in places where they want flowers to grow. So that was also very fun.
Those are great ones. Thanks so much, Edwin. Anyone else want to jump in on kids or any other last closing thoughts while we have a few minutes left together?
Yes, let's talk about marijuana.
Comment box.
I've got vendors wanting to come and sell marijuana too, you know.
And hemp. Yeah, Natalie's adding in hemp as well. Yeah, is this the sort of question that Jen had just put over was, will we have time to talk about developing policy about the sale of seeds? Because we'll likely be approached by vendors. And I think that's really good to start being proactive now about it. I'd probably put out there would need to be, is anyone doing any research around what that would look like, or where does the policy pieces come from? Is that tailored for us as a community? Is that within jurisdictions? I put that out to the group for any dialogue in these last couple of minutes.
I'll throw a quick comment in there. I think the place to start with this is actually checking what kind of federal regulations there are, if there's any new regulations around hemp and cannabis seeds. I don't recall anything in the BC Seeds Act specifically. It's more around field crops, but obviously with the new legalization, that could be changing. So it might be beyond our capacity to do that. So if somebody is able to get a start on that, we can help with that. And then, depending what those restrictions or requirements are, we can discuss ways for each individual event to look at what they will and will not allow. But yeah, I think there's some research to be done in terms of what sort of federal regulations are there to begin with.
Great, thanks, Chris. Anyone else? That topic or others? I think was a good one.
I'm pretty sure that the BC Farmers Market Association has recently surveyed all the BC farmers markets to find out what our policy, like what the blanket policy, what overall is going to be. So it might not be a bad idea to connect with them as well, because this is a huge area. This is huge. And I've already got vendors that want to come and sell pot at my markets on the street as well. So we really need to get clear as to exactly what we're going to be able to do and not do with seeds and with the product itself.
And it's not just a federal legislation, it is a province as well. So I would start with them first. I know for one of our events, we've just identified that you can't grow in our community garden. And that was an easy one because it was laid out in the legislation or the guidelines for the BC. So I think we just need to ask them about selling seeds at this point.
Yeah, the federal focus with marijuana is protecting children. Mm-hmm. So I think we might want to develop a set of values that we use to apply to our policy? Like why would we say no to a vendor, right? What are the reasons we would say no to a marijuana seed vendor? So if we're going to say no. And then my other concern is, like, will they eventually, because we just talked about how it's difficult to find seed vendors, and we always need to be promoting more and more people to become seed savers and potential vendors. But they could take over. Marijuana seed sales could take over Seedy Saturday.
But my understanding is that you can only sell seeds through a proper distributor.
Seeds are not illegal. The seeds are not illegal.
But
So
they're trying to curtail that and have them sold at a certain area. So I'm not sure if they can just be sold in public markets. But good question. I think we need to.
Yeah, I think it's identifying there's some research needed here, and that'd be a great piece to share back. If anyone else is leading that or wants to start sharing it, that's a piece we can collect as well.
Yeah, I think that'll be good, because then we can all try and pool whatever our information is together, and then figure something out.
I think on the marijuana seed and product, I think the products are a little bit easier, simply because they're not supposed to be available to people that are under 19, and certainly there's lots of kids in the room. So I think banning product from the venue is easy. The seeds, many good questions were asked, and I think that needs clarification.
That's a good point. Great. Any last thoughts before we close? Moving away maybe from that research piece, but we flagged that. Natalie also added she'll ask her business partner as well, who's knowledgeable about that kind of piece. So thanks, Natalie, for chiming in on the chat box as well. All right, hearing none at this moment. Chris, anything else before we wrap?
I have nothing to add. We've covered a lot of ground here. So I think there's a lot of good stuff to follow up on. I think there's some specific things that we can do to move things along for the next meeting. That'll hopefully give you some tools fairly quickly. And then hopefully everybody and more people come to the next meeting with some more ideas and getting a sense of what they've been able to implement just from this first meeting. So I really appreciate everyone's participation. This was a very great insight into what's going on around the province. So thanks so much.
Great. All right. Thanks everyone for joining this morning and making time in your busy schedules. I know this is off the side of your desk for many people, and it's a big ask to get an hour and a half out of a Wednesday morning. So thanks so much for making the time and for all the sharing. I really appreciate the collaborative spirit so much about this community, which has kept me doing this work. So I reflect that back out to you as well as thank you for all you've given to this.
Thank you both.
Thanks, everyone. Great meeting.
We should try to get to each other's Seedy Saturdays.
Got to take this on the road.
Yeah. I'll see you in Comox.
Thanks, everybody.
Cheers.
Thanks, everybody. Yay. Happy
Thanks,
harvest.
everyone.